In 1948, the establishment of the State of Israel marked a historic turning point, the return of physical sovereignty to the Jewish people after 2,000 years. This moment of liberation contained a profound paradox. While the founders reclaimed their land, they bypassed the native 3,000-year-old objective legal framework that had sustained their identity in exile. Instead, they enacted the 1948 Law and Administration Ordinance. This directive voluntarily absorbed the legal codes of the very empires they just fought to replace. The first pillar of this inherited system was British mandate law. Through Article 46 of the Palestine Order in Council, the new state absorbed English common law, a system reliant on the uncodified, subjective precedents of judges. The second pillar was a holdover from the Ottoman Empire. The founders kept the Mejelle, a centuries-old civil code, heavily influenced by European and Islamic jurisprudence, to govern property and contracts. A fully sovereign state usually declares its independence by ratifying a single supreme written constitution. Israel built its legal foundation on a fragmented patchwork of imported foreign rulings. Successful revolutions typically result in the immediate dismantling of the occupier's law. In Israel, the state formally codified the legal framework of its former masters. This reliance on foreign law began as an emergency measure, but it quickly transformed into the state's permanent constitutional baseline. Achieving physical independence while choosing legal subjugation reveals a colonized mind, the hallmark of a national Stockholm syndrome. This raises a central question: why would a liberated people actively choose the legal chains of their occupiers? The root cause lies in the centuries spent in the European diaspora, where the Jewish leadership gradually internalized Western frameworks of thought. Colonization often succeeds by forcing native populations to categorize their own identities using foreign definitions. They looked at Judaism and saw what the European Enlightenment told them to see: privatized religion. They believed it was a set of personal rituals that needed to be separated from the administrative affairs of a modern state. By viewing their heritage through this religious lens, the founders became convinced that their ancient texts were irrelevant to the task of running a modern democracy. In reality, classical Judaism functions as a sovereign nationality, and the Torah serves as its objective civil constitution. Many assume that ancient constitutional texts are incompatible with the complexities of modern nation-building. The empirical data proves the opposite. The vast majority of classical Jewish law and its subsequent commentaries focus on advanced civil jurisprudence rather than ritual. The system regulates secular legal fields with high precision, including complex torts, commercial contracts, and property rights. For centuries, Jewish courts operated as a sophisticated judicial network across multiple continents, resolving real-world economic and civil disputes, generating thousands of historical precedents, creating democratized public case law. By categorizing their native jurisprudence as a mere religion, the founders stripped the state of its most powerful regulatory mechanism, ensuring permanent systemic instability. To see the consequences of this choice, we have to evaluate the actual mechanics of the legal systems Israel decided to inherit. The British framework is defined by parliamentary sovereignty and an uncodified constitution. Without a single supreme document, the law is heavily shaped by the subjective nature of judicial precedent. The modern Israeli judiciary inherited this exact vulnerability. Instead of enforcing a fixed constitutional code, courts are forced to fill wide legal gaps using their own judge-made precedents and subjective doctrines like reasonableness. Over time, this kind of system becomes a dense, thorny forest of commentary and debate. The law mutates into an intimidating, complex machine, accessible only to a powerful legal elite. A society cannot claim to be free if its rules depend on the subjective whims of a legal elite. True freedom under the law requires a unified, objective statutory constitution that binds the person on the street and the highest authorities equally. The Torah's original judicial reform, led by Moses, offered the exact opposite structure. It demanded total, radical transparency. The mandate required the law to be carved into giant boulders out in public for every citizen to read. It explicitly rejected the concept of secret rules guarded by a handful of lawyers. The ancient legal code provides a far more objective, rigorous, and transparent foundation for civil freedom than modern discretionary administrative courts. Modern secular societies often dismiss ancient native law because the vocabulary used to describe it sounds purely theological. Restoring this foundation requires correcting a massive mistranslation that anchors the exilic mindset. In Western theology, the Hebrew word Elohim translates to God, a spiritual deity. Classical legal theory reveals a different operational root, a precise jurisdictional designation. Elohim means supreme legal authority, the ultimate jurisdictional body where the legal buck stops. The Torah uses this exact term when instructing citizens to bring civil disputes before mortal human judges and courts of law. Recognizing this legal definition changes the entire reading of the nation's foundational commandments. The constitutional framework relies on recognizing where the ultimate objective legal authority sits within the nation. Under this legal definition, the commandment against worshiping other gods becomes a mandate of political sovereignty. If Elohim represents supreme legal authority, then other gods refers to foreign legal jurisdictions. The text provides a strict constitutional prohibition against placing the society under the jurisdiction of a foreign legal system. This exposes a very sharp irony within modern Israel's legislative framework today. The state conducts its daily business using the legal legacy of the Ottoman Empire and the British Mandate. Voluntarily subjugating a free national society to foreign legal frameworks is a rejection of the Sinai Covenant. Under the exact definitions of the text, choosing to be governed by British common law is the literal constitutional definition of idolatry. Curing the national Stockholm syndrome requires a definitive break. The nation must actively discard its dependency on inherited colonial law. Physical defense and military sovereignty are merely the prerequisites for freedom. True national liberation requires the formal ratification of the Torah as the supreme civil constitution.